Locked on NBA Game Night, I'm Wes Goldberg here with Swipa. Coming up, the Cavs get their revenge over the Celtics. The Rockets and Magic continue to climb the standings, and we have a wild finish in Utah where the Lakers were fortunate to get a win. Let's jump in.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Welcome to Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night in 30 minutes. Wes Goldberg here with Swipa. However, you might be tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Jam-packed show for you on this Sunday night. 10 games to get to here. Let's jump right in. We'll start with Cleveland, where the Cavs beat the Celtics 115-111. Donovan Mitchell had a huge second half, scoring 20 points in the fourth quarter to help the Cavs overcome a 14-point deficit. This was part two between the two top teams in the Eastern Conference. They split the series so far. Worth mentioning, no Jaylen Brown, no Derek White for Boston in this one. Here's Danny Cunningham, though, from Locked On Cavs with more.
Danny Cunningham here at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Let's talk for 94 feet about the Cleveland Cavaliers' 115-111 win over the Boston Celtics on Sunday night. The Cavs, I thought, responded about as well as they could have to some adversity for the first time this year. So they're coming off of two losses against the Atlanta Hawks, a team that they should beat regularly, a team that they are better than. They were down by as many as 14 in the second half on Sunday night to the Celtics. How'd they respond? Donovan Mitchell scored 20 of his 35 points in the fourth quarter to bring the Cavs back. This was a game, I don't want to say they needed to win, like it's November. There's no such thing as a must-win game in November, but I do think that they needed to respond the way they responded to those two losses in Atlanta. And really the first three quarters of this game, more specifically the third quarter. I thought the Cavs competed really hard defensively. I thought it was a step in the right direction on that end of the floor. Now we'll see if they can build on it. Tuesday night, the Washington Wizards, who are terrible, come to town. So we'll see if they can get a win there. After that, it's a matchup with Denver. I've got my eyes on that one on Thursday, but I will talk to you a little bit later on here from Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
So, Swiper, are you more impressed with Danny being able to record on his phone while walking the length of the court, or with the Cavaliers in this win?
Yeah, definitely the Cavs. Shout out to Danny for that great clip. But look, I think for what he said is they needed to get this win, but I think just from a psychology standpoint, you just want to know that if you need to have the tools and the horses to be able to beat the Boston Celtics, you want to see you do it. And they did it. And they did it in a way that I think is important. And Donovan Mitchell, I think a lot of people kind of forget about him. I think some people think he's top 3 shooting guard. I think he might be the best shooting guard in the league. He brings so much to the table for that Cavaliers team, and to watch him do what he did down the stretch of that fourth quarter was tremendous. And I mean, just tremendous basketball from Donovan Mitchell, and just the process of going through even that little hesitation he had, navigating the screen, fakes Drew one way, comes back the other way, hits a step back, wide open three, getting downhill. The level of tension that Donovan Mitchell creates for the opposing defense is tremendous. And then watching him be able to do this, and again, I said this maybe a few weeks ago, and I think people finally are starting to catch on. Darius Garland being this version of Darius Garland is what helped this team be what it is. The shot making and the playmaking you're getting. And again, don't be fooled. Darius Garland, by any means, is not going to be a positive defender on most nights. But tonight, fourth quarter, he gets Jason Tatum isoled on him in 2 different possessions and gets 2 stops on Jason Tatum. Now, again, many people might say, well, Jason just lost concentration. He should have made those baskets, especially the one he had a one-on-one situation and just shot the ball over the rim, basically. But you get that kind of defensive performance from this team, and on top of that, their shooting has been outrageous this year. They shoot 17 of 36 from 3. They out-Celtics the Celtics. I think this is a very good game for the Cavs, because you're proving that even after having 2 duds that you lose to a team you shouldn't have lost to, you can come back and maybe beat the best team in the NBA in your house.
Yeah, I was wondering what kind of lesson they were going to learn from the first time they lost to the Boston Celtics. And one of the things that stood out to me in that first matchup was that they tried to out-Celtics the Celtics a little bit too much, where they ended up getting out of their own game. And in this game, there was a few markers where you're like, all right, cool. Like, you're watching this game, you're saying they're doing the Cleveland Cavaliers things. They're doing the things that make them a great team. They did not fall in love with the three-point shot. They outscored Boston 40-24 in the paint, and Cleveland's size is going to be an advantage for them in these matchups. Not just their size with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, which is obviously an advantage for them in that front court when they utilize it correctly. But to your point, Donovan Mitchell is bigger, stronger when he wants to be than the other Boston guards. Like Derek White and Drew Holiday are good. Donovan Mitchell just has this ability to drive to the rim and make things happen. Darius Garland was fantastic in this game, 4 for 6 from three-point range, 22 points and 8 assists. And so you've got like that duo, you've got your front court duo, and you're playing to your strengths. I thought that was very much on display in this game. Yes, they had 17 three-point makes, but only on 36 attempts. Again, did not fall in love with it. And then in the end of this game, they played a big stretch with Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley on the court where they kind of got away from that in that first Boston matchup. And Jarrett Allen had this great he got, I think it was Holiday it was Hauser on the mismatch at the end. And they were really, I thought Cleveland was really quick to sort of identify those mismatches, get the ball to the guy that needed to get the ball, and then take advantage of that. And so, again, I thought the Cavaliers were so much more locked in to the game plan that they needed to have. And then to your point, Swipa, like winning these games in the regular season does matter. It's a proof of concept. It's, hey, when we get to the playoffs and when we see these guys, we know we can beat them because we did beat them.
Right. And then also, too, it means something to me that they have two bigs that can ostensibly, ideally switch on any player that the Celtics have to offer. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to get consistent stops, but there was even a rotation today with Jared Allen got matched up against, I think it was Peyton Pritchard within the last 3 minutes of the game or so. And he did a good job of staying in front of him and forced a late shot to Al Horford, in which they missed. And I think they might have got shot clock violation on that possession. But even just the intensity in which they're playing, and then to be able to almost versus any team, you can basically line up and say, we're going to do switch, we're going to play zone, we're going to be able to play ice, we're going to play drop, we're going to hedge at the level, do whatever we have to do. We can put you in so many different places defensively. And I think they've been able to do that all year. And you got a chance to see them do that down the stretch of the game. So honestly, just a truly impressive win for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I think they've cemented themselves that they are probably right now, they have an argument for the best team in basketball. And if you would ask me start the season, that would have been the case. But even maintaining this, and also what I want to say too, Wes, is they had a very easy schedule up until they played the Celtics just about a week or so ago, a week and a half ago. A very easy schedule. And a lot of people, including myself, just wanted to see them do this versus elite competition. And they've gone out versus the Celtics in game one. They didn't win, but you saw it. You saw that they had it in them to get that kind of game off. And tonight, the Celtics, they get Kristaps Porzingis back. He's in the lineup. He's there. He's available. He's healthy. So now you're going to deal with this floor spacing, 5-out style, Joe Mazzulla ball to the max, and you respond. And then on top of that, this is what I also love about the NBA. At the time, when they traded for Donovan Mitchell, when Rudy Gobert, when he went to Minnesota, everybody was like, man, why would you give up 9 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert? But you see, Rudy Gobert, he changed the Minnesota Timberwolves from the inside out. He made them elite, got them to the Western Conference Finals. And now I think this is Donovan Mitchell's turn. I think Donovan Mitchell is getting a chance to show the world that if you give me adequate help, you give me some defensive interior presences with they have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. You give me some wing defenders in the co-road. You give me some guys that are going to compete, and then you give me a secondary playmaker, even at sometimes a primary playmaker that can create on ball, that can hit open shots, that can work ISO, that can get downhill and pick and roll, that can throw lobs. You put all that together, and you got a coach that's implementing the system where everybody believes in it, everybody buys into it. I'm excited about the Cleveland Cavaliers because they play a brand of basketball that I think is sustainable. And you saw tonight that when they get to nitty-gritty time, we can play team ball, we can do all the great things. But you know this, West, very well. In order to win at the highest level in this league, you got to have a guy. And you got to have a guy that want to score, get buckets versus any kind of defense you're playing against them. And again, whether it's Drew Holiday or Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown or whoever, that dude was able to say, I'm the best player on this court tonight, and I'm going to go get my team a victory. And that's how you know when you got a real squad on your hands.
Jason Tatum had a great game tonight. Donovan Mitchell outdueled him. That was another thing going on, and Donovan Mitchell does not shy from that. I don't know that there's 5 guys in the league that you would rather have taking a big shot than Donovan Mitchell. He is a bona fide killer. The Cavs have everything you need to be a legit contender. Look at them on paper. They got all the stuff that you need to be a real contender, but people have a hard time, I think, wrapping their head around it because LeBron James is not wearing that jersey right now, and that's the only time they've ever been considered at that level. But they are checking every box as the season goes on. All right, coming up, the Grizzlies get another win on Sunday and are starting to look like contenders in the Western Conference. We'll talk about that, get to more of Sunday's games after this here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to somebody who's unbiased in your life. Maybe you're having trouble moving up at work, or if you've run into a wall in a relationship. Maybe you're anxious, you're sad, maybe you're a little gloomy in the wintertime and you just don't know why. Therapy could be different for everybody. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, it's designed to be flexible, and it's suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen. Best way to support the show. Subscribe, like the videos on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on your favorite podcast app. We got a thriller in Houston that we're going to talk about. The Rockets beat the Thunder 119-116 thanks to a big shot in the final seconds by Dillon Brooks. Fred VanVleet had 38 in this game. The Rockets are in second place in the Western Conference at 15-6. Here's Jackson Gatlin from Locked On Rockets with more.
In a battle between the two teams at the top of the Western Conference, the Houston Rockets emerged victorious with a statement win, 119-116 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. What's up? This is Jackson Gatlin, host of Locked On Rockets. And man, as I'm walking around here on the Toyota Center court, this was probably the most intense game the Rockets have had here in years. It was playoff intensity from the start to the end of this game. You could tell the players were into it. You could tell the coaching staffs were into it. The refs were getting into it. It was a high-intensity affair. Rockets did a great job limiting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, held him to just 10 of 19 shooting, 32 points. And on the other side for the Rockets, Alperen Sengun, despite a rough offensive night, just 7 of 17 shooting, he was sensational, flirting with a triple-double, just 1 assist shy there. The play of the game, Dillon Brooks recovering a loose ball, recovered by Alperen Sengun, hitting a midi pull-up with 1/10 of a second left on the shot clock to make it a 115-113 Rockets lead. And the hero of the game, Fred VanVleet, scored 38 points. He was the Rockets offense when they needed it most. He hit clutch threes to either tie the game or take the lead late. And now this Houston Rockets team is just a half game back of being the 1 seed in the Western Conference.
Everybody's just walking around their courts now, I guess. I didn't get the memo that we were supposed to do this, but guess that's what they're doing. Anyway, Swiper, your thoughts on the Rockets, second place in the Western Conference right now?
Yeah, I think that number one, shout out to Fred VanVleet. He started the year off horribly, and he looked like he was a dude that needed to be out ASAP. Jalen Green, yet another game where he just offensively, it's just a no-show. So obviously they're going to have to make some decisions there at some point, but he's probably going to continue to start anyway. Has to, just got to think of the contract, the extension, the flow of the offense, and all that stuff, and how it's working. But shout out to the Rockets, man. I mean, just a great game all the way around. Jabari Smith with a 15 and 14 triple-double. And what I love is that the Rockets are like proving that last year their ascension they started to go on wasn't a fluke, that They have the guys in-house to be able to get the job done. And again, man, like the shot making is kind of what changed this game. And as he talked about Alperen Sengun being able to hit that little midi that he hit, Fred VanVleet, I mean, I'm talking about like not even just the 1 foot half court heave that he hit, but just even some of the stuff that he was able to hit on the wing. Like, and again, they have so many people on the roster that fit so many different roles. And I love Amen Thompson. I think Amen Thompson is going to be a legit guy in this league. Defensively, he is a nightmare. And he was able to have some real impact on today's game. I love how athletic they are and how they utilize their athleticism in the open court today and in space versus this Rockets team, versus this Thunders team. But I'm just really excited to kind of see how they continue to put it together, man. And again, if you're telling me that like Fred VanVleet is starting to like turn back into like 2 years ago, like Toronto Raptors, Fred VanVleet, maybe even, really 3 years ago, where he's really like hitting shots at a really high level. He's hitting those contested threes at a really high level, open threes at a really high level. Well, that opens up their offense in a lot of ways they really need. And their personnel and what they've gotten a chance to develop with Ime Udoka, man. I love what they've been doing from this team from the inside out. And one of the things that you saw today versus this Thunder team, even if the game starts to slip a little bit, their defense is legit. And when you have a defense you can rely on that's physical, that's aggressive, and leads to points for you in transition, it's really hard to beat young teams with a lot of athletes that play that style of basketball. Mm-hmm. So I think the Rockets, man, they might be angling to be a legitimate like 52, 53 win team this year. Again, but this is the NBA. I never would have said that coming into the year. I never would have said Cleveland's going to do that coming into the year, but you got to recognize what's in front of you. And really 20 games through the season, this has been one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the sport.
No doubt about it. And their defense is the thing that really powers them, to your point, too. Like last year, I thought their defense, it was highly ranked. I thought it was a little smoke and mirrors-ish. Like they were really good. Like they were a good transition defense. There was a little bit of three-point luck and stuff. I was like, okay, how sustainable is this for a young team? And they just came out and doubled down. So shout out to Ime Udoka, who's done such a good job coaching this team. Like it's a bunch of young guys, but with Ime, with Dylan Brooks, with Fred VanVleet, the leadership at the top of this thing is really strong, and they don't play young. In fact, like it's more of a feature than a bug. And in that way, because they're so active and athletic and all these things, and in that way, they've kind of taken a few pages out of the Oklahoma City Thunder playbook, haven't they? Where they said, okay, we're going to have a good coach at the top of this thing. We're going to use that athleticism. We're going to use it for defensive purposes, not necessarily the way that you see young teams typically play with dunks and three-pointers and all that kind of stuff. No, we're going to use that. We're going to harness that and be just a fearsome defensive squad. And that's exactly what they've done here. I thought it was really interesting in this game, Swipa, that this is a deep team, this Rockets team. They have a lot of guys that deserve some minutes on this roster. They played 9. They really kind of only went with 7. You got Steven Adams in there for a couple minutes. Reed Shepherd played less than 10 minutes. When push comes to shove, and it's exactly what Jackson was saying in his short there was, they really wanted this game. Okay, so they really wanted this game. Push comes to shove against the top team in the Western Conference in the Thunder. These are the 7 guys that he trusted. The starting 5 with Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith, and Alperen Şengün. And then really it was just Amen Thompson and Tari Eason off the bench. And those 2 guys, they're the Terra Twins. That's their nickname. Defensively, they are terrifying, absolutely. I thought that was something worth noting and something I'll be monitoring going forward. But we got to move on. Let's go to Utah, where the Lakers escaped with a 1-point win. The Jazz coach Will Hardy calling a timeout right before Colin Sexton makes the go-ahead shot, wiping it off the board. Sexton then fumbles the ball on the official final possession. The Lakers win the game. I bet Will Hardy wants this one back. Here's David Locke with more.
In a closely fought game where neither team ever led by more than 9, the Utah Jazz grabbed a rebound with 11 seconds left. Down 1 against the Los Angeles Lakers. Will Hardy had a timeout left. He opted not to call it at that point. Colin Sexton came across the half court. As he veered left, seemingly with nothing available, Will Hardy called timeout with 2.1 seconds left. Sexton turned the corner and may have been open for a layup at that point. Too hard to tell. On the inbound play, the Jazz couldn't get anything materialized, and the Jazz fell short to the LA Lakers, 105-104, and it always sucks to lose to the Lakers.
There you have it from David Locke, kind of recapping it from the arena there. What did you think about how this one ended?
Well, look, first off, I just want to say that the Utah Jazz, they have a very, I think, a surprisingly good team in ways. Like, they're not good per se, but they have a lot of people that can play basketball. And
they're competitive in a lot of these games.
Right. Like that, they just have dudes that believe in what they're doing. And again, I think this is we just got done talking about Cleveland. Okay, good culture. Celtics, good culture. Thunder, good culture. Rockets, good culture. I think they're building very similar with the Utah Jazz. And again, they're taking a page out of the OKC Houston book where, look, we're going to be bad, but we're going to load up on athletes. We're going to load up on guys that know what they're doing, that are smart, that know how to play basketball. And I love what they're doing, man. And again, Walker Kessler 13 and 11 today. Keontae George didn't even have like a spectacular game, but he shot 50% from the field. I love Keontae. I think he's going to be a legitimate all-star one day. I really enjoy watching him play. Lauri Markkanen was really good, 22, 7, and 4. But I think one of the things that about the Jazz team that I'm taking away is that until they decide they want to hang it up and kind of just fade away to the bottom of the West, they're going to be in trouble for every team that they're playing for the most part over the course of the year, just specifically because they have so many different matchups that they can create, just even with their bench and just how, like, even Sensenball, like, they just have ways they can just utilize everybody. But to the Lakers, they're just not a good basketball team. Again, I think that at this point in time, I think truth just needs to be said. Their defense is horrendous. Their offense is up and down. LeBron James and Anthony Davis, 33 and 11 for AD, 13 of 25. That's really good. LeBron James had 27 and 14 today, 12 of 28. That's good. They won by 1 point versus this Jazz team that's not good. So I just think at this point in time, the Lakers, they have a lot of stuff they're going to have to figure out. And they don't have a consistent play style that works for them. And then sometimes they will literally, like, the offense will dead stop. Like, even down the stretch of this game, they're up 8-point lead and the offense disappears. It just literally just goes away, and they just cannot seem to catch back up in the game unless LeBron James just does something LeBron James special, drives to the rim, gets that fadey. I think over it might have been Laurie, it might have been Walker Kessler. I can't remember who it was, but unless he hits some of those shots, like, they just don't have, I think, the consistency that you're looking for. And again, I think JJ Redick's done a really good job in a lot of ways, but they're severely lacking in the personnel department, and you saw that today versus the Utah Jazz in the game. I think they should have won going away.
Walker Kessler ate them up in the last few minutes of this game, and that's been a problem with the Lakers overall. Has just been their paint defense, their paint, interference. Like, they have some guys with size, but they don't play with a whole lot of size. You know what I mean? Like, Anthony Davis is really the only guy who's doing anything defending centers, and he's good in the regular season. He kind of leaves the best of himself.
Well, he hasn't been good
for the
defensively.
playoffs.
I'll say it for you, Wes. He hasn't been good defensively to start this year off. He just hadn't.
He hasn't. You mentioned LeBron, 27 points, first time with more than 20 points since November 21st. So he breaks out of this little scoring slump that he's been in. So just another thing worth monitoring there.
Fair. So not the most efficient LeBron game. Yeah,
totally fair. We are going to go to Memphis next, where the Grizzlies beat the Pacers 136-121. Grizzlies have won 6 in a row to improve to 14-7. They are third in the Western Conference. John Morant and Desmond Bane are back. They're getting something out of Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark in the front court. Jalen Wells, the rookie, giving them some good minutes there. We're going to talk some Grizzlies after this here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen of the day. The Grizzlies are in third place in the Western Conference. Let's hear from Locked On Grizzlies with more.
Us in the first quarter, not gonna lie, but safe to say the Memphis Grizzlies came roaring back on their way to a 136-121 victory over the Indiana Pacers. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies, and the particularly wild thing about this Grizzlies win is it looked like it was going to be a blowout in the opposite direction. The Indiana Pacers had a 45, you heard me right, 45-28 advantage at the end of the first frame, but the rest of the game, Memphis blew the doors off of the Pacers, setting the pace on both the offensive and defensive ends, winning each of the final 3 quarters on their way to a victory on Sunday afternoon.
So do you agree with Joe there that the Grizzlies look like contenders?
No, not contenders. Again, I think this is where you gotta, like, I think just in context with stuff like, okay, how many things can you solve for in a playoff setting? The Grizzlies are still going to be very limited, I think, offensively in a playoff setting. Now, again, we'll see how things expand as the year goes on, but no, I would not call them contenders. They could be in that tier right below. I think in a regular season, they're going to be a really good regular season team. I think John Morant continues to figure himself out, plays better, gets more in rhythm, is able to stay in the lineup consistently. Obviously, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, Jaren Jackson, the rest of the roster, Gigi Jackson, all of them, they definitely are going to be really good. But again, you're playing versus the Pacers team that just is not a good defensive team at all. Tyrese Halliburton had another one of those, okay, you know what I mean? Like he's going like this, and then he goes here, then he comes back down here again. So he just was disappearing. And again, 136 points. Like, they just went ham. They almost scored 100 points in 3 quarters, just for context. Like, that is like a abysmal defense by the Pacers on their end. But again, shout out to the Memphis Grizzlies, man. But again, I don't really know. Like, that's the thing about the West. I don't know who didn't think that they could end up being a really good team this year. Their offense is going to be good enough in the regular season setting. Their defense definitely has a really high ceiling with Jaren Jackson, Bane, and Smart on the court at the same time at some point in time. But I think they're going to be a really good team. But this was a really good win for them. I think in this Western Conference right now, you're starting to see like teams kind of separate themselves a little bit at the top. And so you want to stay as close to the top as possible. And they did that with the win versus the Pacers tonight.
I still think Memphis' best basketball is ahead of them as these guys get healthy and John Morant really gets his legs under him and stops missing, time here and there. But you look at the formula that the Grizzlies had, 2, 3, 4 years ago that have kept them at the top of the Western Conference those years before last year, which was basically a gap year given everything that they were dealing with. And it was what? It was an elite defense and number 1 with a bullet in rebounding rate and just the best rebounding team in the league. Well, right now, over the last 15 games, after a little bit of a slow start, they're 5th in defensive rating. And they are, for the season, the best rebounding team in the NBA. And John Morant, when he's healthy, looks like John Morant. And I had my questions. I didn't think we could just turn the key and say, yeah, John Morant's back. Everything's good, like last year never happened. But it looks like last year never happened because he looks great. So they're doing all the formula, but in the same time, the West has gotten better in that gap, even though it was just 1 year. I think that they're a contender to make the Western Conference Finals. If the bracket breaks right and maybe they get some good matchups or whatever, they get a hot John Morant, some hot shooting, whatever like that. But if you're a Grizzlies fan, you got to be impressed and at least grateful for at least what they're doing so far. And they're going to get guys back. Vince Williams, Gigi Jackson, some of these guys will work their way back into the lineup from injuries. Let's go to Brooklyn where the Magic came in and beat the Nets 192. Franz Wagner, 20 points. Orlando had 6 players scoring double digits, and they just keep on rolling, Swipa. The Magic have won 12 of their last 13 games. They're starting to separate themselves from like the non-Celtics, non-Cavs teams in the Eastern Conference, and there's really starting to we're getting this like top 3 in the Eastern Conference standings, and this is all without Paolo Banchero. Let's hear from Locked On Magic with more.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, as the Orlando Magic defeat the Brooklyn Nets 100-92. And if you survived this game like Magic fans and Nets fans did, then congratulations. This was a slog, a foul fest. 50-plus fouls called in this game. No rhythm at all, but this is what playoff teams do. And I think it's really important to know this because the Magic are thinking about the playoffs already. Just because it's December 1st at that, doesn't mean the Magic aren't thinking about March and April and May and maybe even June. Good teams find ways to win these ugly games. Good teams come back against the same team that they just beat Friday night and beat them again on their home floor. They find ways to take these kinds of games. And when a game with no rhythm, no momentum, the Magic found enough shots at the end. A quick 10-0 run in the fourth quarter gave them the distance they needed, gave them a win. That's all that matters.
I have so much... I don't know that if I have trouble trying to figure out the Orlando Magic. They're really good right now. Their schedule has been a little fortunate for them, right? They haven't played a bunch of tough teams, Brooklyn being one of them. But they're winning games. They're doing it without their best player. I don't know that I can take anything away from them. And 12 out of 13 without your best player is still really hard to do. I don't care who you're playing. And yet, obviously, they're not Boston. They're not Cleveland. But there's a lot of good things happening. So I don't really know what to make of this Orlando Magic season other than this is cool. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, they're developing and they're moving in the right direction. Again, like the blueprint for these young teams should be Thunder. And how do we kind of copycat that style? They did. They got a lot of athletes. They drafted very high for a long time. Paolo, Franz, and he came away with Jalen Suggs. Like they have a legitimate like future core. And on top of that, I think they're ahead of schedule. They're winning.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're winning, and they're winning a lot of games right now. They're going to position themselves to maybe the 3 seed. I don't know. Maybe things break right. Maybe the 2 seed inside of the Eastern Conference. And I think that's something they should be proud of. I think a lot of the stuff for the NBA, really, there's only really 4 or 5 teams every year that can win a championship. That's it. Everybody else is going through a process, and they're developing their roster. They're finding out more things about their roster. They're finding out that we need to blow it up and go a different direction, or, hey, are we on the right track? And I think Orlando's on the right track. And for you to get these kind of performances out of Franz and the rest of them, and again, when you have a defensive ceiling that's this high, it's going to be really hard to beat them. Now, granted, Cam Thomas was not there tonight, so they're missing, arguably their best player, and so that's going to put them in a different conversation as a whole. But I think the Magic, and especially shout out Jamal Mosley, I said he was doing a really good job a couple of years ago, and people were saying that they just didn't think that he was doing enough. There wasn't enough development. They weren't seeing the team move in the right direction. But again, you get some veterans in there like KCP. You get some young players that are stepping into the role like Franz and Paolo, obviously, before he went down. Jalen. They just have like the type of team that you're looking at and saying, I can see that team vying for the Eastern Conference title at some point in time.
Another thing I like about this team is they can win in different ways, and they're really committed to their identity, and that's all Jamal Mosley, too, is in this game against Brooklyn, a team that likes to kind of go small, space the floor. They get a little weird in terms of lineups with Jordi Fernandez, and it's been working for them. They kind of throw teams off kilter a little bit. Orlando came in and said, we're not playing your game. You know what? We're going to double down. We're going to start Wendell Carter Jr. and Goga Batazzi. We're going to go big and smash you in the paint. And that's exactly what they did. And that's sort of what Orlando Magic does, right? They're third in defensive rating right now. That's a big part of their formula. Another thing like Houston, how good defensively are these young teams really? Well, Houston, Orlando, they're proving, nope, we've got the athletes, we got the coaching, we're awesome defensively. We're going to hang our hat on that. And so, yeah, it's been good, and they're going to get Paolo Banchero back at some point also to add to this thing. We got a few more games to get to, 5 more games. Speed round these ones. Swipa, we're going to play the old game, play on or blow the whistle. You're going to tell me to play on if you've got nothing to add. You blow the whistle if you have something to add. First one, a fun one. In Sacramento, the Kings up 17 points at one point in this game, but the Spurs clawed back into the game. Devin Vassell hit a couple of big threes late. Victor Wembanyama, 34 points, 13-11, 3 blocks. Crazy ending to this one with the refs missing a clear, at least in my opinion, over the back on Wembanyama, who got a huge offensive rebound over Domantas Sabonis with 5.5 seconds left. That basically ended this game. Otherwise, the Kings might have had a chance to shoot for the tie in this game at that point, down 3. Play on or blow the whistle?
Play on. Referees, they do not care about interior fouls in the NBA.
Luka Doncic returned from a 5-game absence in Portland because of a wrist injury and put up 36 points and 13 assists against the Blazers. Mavericks win the game 137-131. Portland made 38% of their threes, but turned the ball over 21 times. Spencer Dinwiddie was huge for Dallas down the stretch, scoring 14 points in the fourth quarter. Swipe a play on or blow the whistle?
Play on. They beat a bad team. Welcome back, Luka.
Let's go to Los Angeles. I don't disagree with any of this stuff. Let's go to Los Angeles where the Clippers beat the Nuggets 126-122. James Harden played every minute of the second half. He finished with 39 points, 11 assists, and 9 rebounds. Norm Powell returned for the Clippers, and he scored 28. I know you're going to blow the whistle on this one.
Oh, no. I mean, the Nuggets haven't shown up defensively in weeks, and they went 10 of 19 from the free throw line and lose by 4 points. They shot 58% from the field, and you lost the game. What do you know what I mean? They had 37 assists and 14 turnovers. They only gave a 28 assists and 14 turnovers. So you dominated from the field. You dominated the assist to turnover battle. You won a lot of the things that are really important to win a basketball game, but you got outscored by 24 points from the three-point line, and you made not even just basically half of your free throws. Play on. You know why you lost the game.
The free throws are tough. This is another area where Denver's main weakness, their math problem that they're always dealing with. They don't get up enough of threes compared to some of the other teams the rest of the league. And when a team like the Clippers or whoever else just kind of gets hot, they're vulnerable to that. And that's something that in a playoff series, in a 7-game series, becomes maybe less of an issue, but it's still a scary thing if you're the Denver Nuggets.
No, their defense was horrible. They literally were horrible. They in the third quarter got up 10. They were blitzing, didn't have any rotation at all backside, and gave up wide open 3-pointers down the stretch into the third quarter down 2 when they were up 10. So 12-point swing made no difference.
Last 2 games, first one in Toronto, Raptors beat the Heat 119-116. They split a home-and-home series over the weekend. RJ Barrett, 37 points for the Raptors. Tyler Hero had 31 for the Heat. And then the last game in New York, the Knicks blow out the Pelicans 118-85. Mikal Bridges, 31 points, his best game in a Knicks uniform. but this game was never close, and we are done, Swipa, with a loaded 10-game slate that wraps up Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcasts.